Ooh. Well, that sounds like it was great.
It was really good fun, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope you can do some more of that soon.
All right, do that again.
TheScienceShed! We're in the TheScienceShed! TheScienceShed! We're in the TheScienceShed! Come on, Steve.
Bunsen.
Burner!
Solid.
Machine!
Internal.
Combustion!
Why do we need
Steam!
Petri?
Dishes!
Oscar.
Base!
Isaac.
Newton!
Transplanting.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another podcast. It's Nick speaking.
And it's Steve here.
Yeah, it's good to be back, isn't it,
It's
Steve?
the next podcast.
Another one.
We keep churning them out, don't we?
Oh, it's just one after another.
Just gold after gold after gold. People are so lucky. They get to listen to us ramble on.
I'm sure that's what they're thinking about.
Exactly. They probably weep a little tear every time.
Yeah, and I don't know where you guys are listening to it. I don't know. You should let us know where you listen to our
It tells
podcast.
you on SoundCloud. iTunes doesn't tell you shit, but SoundCloud tells you where people download it.
What,
from.
like in the bath?
No. In what country?
Right.
In the shed, hopefully.
I was thinking it would tell you whether you're, I don't know, in the bath, in the car,
I think there are some limitations to what Apple knows about
on
you.
the job.
Would
I
you
don't
like
know.
that, wouldn't you?
Oh, it'd be exciting, yeah. But no, you're talking IP addresses, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the majority of people listen in the UK, and then there's quite a lot of people that listen in the US, and a couple of people from the Antipodes as well.
Who's listening to it in the US and the Antipodes?
I don't know. Some people.
Oh my God.
Some people.
I didn't know that, Steve. You've
Yeah.
enlightened me. It's an exciting fact. Hello to all of you down under.
Yeah. And our American cousins.
Oh, and them too, yeah.
And anyone else for that matter.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Anyway, should we get talking, Steve?
Let's get on with it.
Here we go.
Hooray.
You finished messing around with your microphone, Steve?
Yeah, finish messing
You're
around with
always fiddling with that thing.
it. Well, I like to get it right.
Well, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 or 2 millimeters away from your face, does it?
Well, it does to me.
Well, especially with you don't want to get your beard caught in the
That's
holes
true.
of the microphone, do you?
That's right. It's an occupational hazard as a podcaster.
As a bearded man.
As a bearded podcaster, yeah.
Anyway, how you been doing? What you been up to, Steve?
That's right. I've been on holiday. I went to Italy, which was fun. But I've just got back, and so I had loads and loads of emails. So not so much time for science this
How
week.
many emails do you get,
I
Steve?
got 600 emails.
How many of them were junk?
Probably 350, something like that.
I reckon at least for me, half is just delete.
Yeah.
I hate coming back from holiday and having all those emails.
Yeah, it's kind of real anxiety, isn't it?
Oh, it's just irritating. It's like, do you ever leave like an out of office that says, "I'm away. If you email me, it will get deleted.
Yeah.
Please contact me when I'm back."
I don't, but I should. I think I might do that. So if it's important enough that you need to send me another email when I'm back.
Do you think that's a bit of an arrogant thing to do, though?
I would just like, well, I'm so important I couldn't possibly read your email until I got back.
Well, I don't know. I've seen people do that, and I'm like, well, maybe they're kind of a big head. They're saying, well, I can't be bothered to go through all of the emails to look for your
You're not important enough.
puny email about your puny problems.
Grant or something.
Yeah, but I did it once. I did that. I did it in a kind of polite way. I can't remember how I phrased it.
Passive aggressive kind of English way.
Just in a kind of like, you kind of you dress it up in a kind of in a
not too much
non-direct.
trouble. I hope it doesn't. But I can't possibly. I'll do my best.
That sort of thing, yeah. But then I stopped doing that now. I just go through them later on and spend like a day and a half deleting them and all that stuff. So what are you doing, Steve? You're smashing your glass with the mic again.
I know.
You obviously didn't adjust it properly.
I didn't know. I'm in trouble. Nick's telling me off.
Yeah.
Right, shall we talk about some science?
Oh, I could do. Why aren't you going to ask me what I've been doing?
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, let's carry on. So what have you been doing?
Not. So, Steve, I ran a workshop for kids this week.
A scientific workshop?
Yeah, it
or
was
a sweatshop?
like-
Were you making them make like shoes and?
No, they're just called PhD students.
Ah, fine.
That's the
fine,
sweatshop.
fine.
Sorry, PhD students. But no, we had a bunch of kids come in because I, with a colleague, Alex Dickinson, we run a thing called the Biomedical Engineering course, which is run through a charity called Small Piece.
Right. And
Funny name, isn't it?
what's the charity's remit? What's it do?
Oh, they try and make kids. Well, they try and persuade kids. I wouldn't say make kids. They try and persuade kids to do.
There's not enough charities making children do things nowadays. There's a real gap in the market for in the charity sector.
But they try and encourage kids to do engineering degrees.
Right.
So I'm kind of peripherally involved in biomedical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
In my I do some sort of tissue engineering. But anyway, they come in and they're there for a whole week. 16-year-old kids.
Wow.
They're usually pretty nice, actually.
So what? You get them to do experiments, get them in the lab, put lab coats on them. What do you do?
Not quite. They do some what's called master classes, where one of my students came and showed them what stem cells are and how you isolate them and stuff like that. And they also they do a range of kind of like these things called design and make, where they have to they've got a design brief, right? And they've got to, using bits and pieces, usually like craft type stuff.
So you build a bridge out of paper and
syringes, tubes, plastic bands.
You're making children play with syringes.
They've not got needles on the end.
Oh, yeah, but that's what you should go for. That should be the tagline for your...
What, they have like 100 needles, 10 of which are infected.
Exactly. And
find out which ones have AIDS.
Natural selection play its course. It's quite meta in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, they don't. So they
So what kind of things do they do? Tell me.
So one of them. So this guy, who was in the group previously, came up with this idea they have to design a keyhole surgery tools.
Right.
So they've got we provide them with a papier-mâché body torso,
right,
with a balloon for a head.
So you have to make those before?
Yeah.
Who does that?
The students. So the university will pay them like demonstrator rates
to make papier-mâché torsos?
Yeah, it's a public engagement exercise.
That's amazing.
So they have a papier-mâché...
Do you think that when your PhD students are doing that, do you think that that's why they signed up to do a PhD, to really push back the forefronts of human knowledge, and they're there making a papier-mâché head?
I think that passing on knowledge to the next generation, encouraging people to get involved, is a worthwhile use of their time. But anyway, they make a papier-mâché body, and it's got a rib cage in it made of cardboard, and then there's a pepper... Like a pepper,
like a bell pepper, like a capsicum.
Yeah, right, exactly, okay. For our American listeners.
Yeah,
but there's a pepper
or Australian.
Or Australian. Yeah. Do you want to list any other nationalities? Anyway, inside the pepper there's a bunch of custard, which is kind of like fatty atherosclerosis or something, fatty deposits, and they have to extract the custard through the body torso wall.
That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah. So they've got to design a tool to do that. So they've got a couple of webcams.
They've got straws.
They've got straws. They've got all kinds of things. They've got a couple of webcams, a couple of straws. So they do that sort of stuff. And they've got kidneys with like cocktail sticks jabbed into the kidneys. And then they've got a piece of stomach lining which has come away. So they've got to find a way to stick it back.
Wow.
So they just muck around and they try and do it. And, there's a couple of engineers supervising them who sort of, try and think about... Try and encourage them to think around the issue and what an engineer would think about.
Rather than just playing with the straws and the custard filled.
So it's brilliant. It's a good laugh. And then they present it at the end and we get a couple of the academics in to come and judge the projects. But that's not... I mean, they do other things as well. Like they did... One of them was design an artificial leg.
Right.
So they have to design a prosthetic leg.
Right.
So they have to think into... They think about the user. So for one of them, it was an athletic person, 23, been in a car accident. And the other person was an old African lady,
right,
who needed to get across the cobbles, apparently to play bingo. I didn't know they played bingo in Africa.
So it's a rich backstory. They really get to get.
Anyway, they came in and we sort of the charity are great, small piece are excellent. They sort of sort them out and tell them where to go. They're kind of like the teachers,
right?
And we just set the activities for them to do,
right? So you just get the fun stuff.
Yeah, it's a great laugh. I mean,
That's
one of
fun.
the other things, one of the team building activities is quite funny. They do this thing where we get a wheelchair and three of them are in a team. One of them has to wear ear defenders, so they're deaf, in inverted commas. Another one wears a blindfold.
Yeah.
And then they have to go around taking photographs of a prescribed list of objects around campus. So they have to work. So they learn to work as a team, and the blind person has to take the photos.
Right.
So basically, it's to try and illustrate to them, what it is, how it feels to be a disabled person, and what design. How do you start thinking about how you make?
And is it kind of useful? Like afterwards, do they chat? And do you feel like they just had fun squishing a custard-filled capsicum, or do you think they actually take something from it? Do you think it's
He
actually...
definitely takes something from it.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, yeah, because the people that come and give the course, some of them from different. There's a couple of we have people come from Liverpool, and
Yeah.
There's a charity in Bath who supported it this year called Designability.
I can't imagine you being all like enthusiastic for the kids, Nick, without you being grumpy. I just can't like. I think...
Well, I'm sure that anyone listening to this podcast will find it very easy to imagine. That
No. No.
Anyway, that was fun. Oh, Aliens was on TV the other night, Steve. Did you know it's 30 years since Aliens was
It's amazing,
released?
isn't it? It's a great movie.
Do you prefer Aliens or Alien?
I think Aliens for me is much more of a kind of action movie, whereas Alien was a horror.
I prefer Alien.
Really?
I prefer the first one, yeah, because I like the bit when John Hurt has the bad Chinese takeaway,
Yeah.
and then he gets some indigestion.
It's quite bad indigestion.
It's quite bad. We don't want to spoil it for anybody.
That hasn't seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, those aliens were full of
The xenomorphs.
acids.
They're a good baddie, aren't they? The xenomorph as they go.
Is that what they're called?
The xenomorphs. Yeah.
When
The
did they
aliens.
get called a
Well,
xenomorph?
that's what they've always been called.
Not in the first one.
No, yeah, there was. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I don't think they ever actually mentioned it, but that's just what they're known as.
Anyway, I wanted to ask you something, Steve, as a
Right.
chemist.
Hello.
Is it they got acid for blood that
call
dribbled
it-
through like
yeah, they call
3
it-
floors?
they
Is
call-
that possible?
No. So they call it molecular acid in the. Actually, maybe we should talk about acid. It's got quite an interesting story about acid. So, yeah. So in the movie, you know, when the alien bleeds, you see it kind of melt floor tiles and things like that, and goes through.
It's like
metal.
dribbles through metal, mate. It goes through 3 floors of metal.
Yes, I mean there are acids in general. You know, we think about bottles of acids in when you're at high school or something, but there are acids that do dissolve things pretty rapidly. There are things called superacids which have a kind of a negative pH. And actually superacids, pretty cool, huh?
How can you have negative pH?
So I mean it's just the minus the log of the hydrogen ion concentrations.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what
I
pH
knew
stands
that
for.
actually.
Yeah,
I did actually know that, didn't I?
Yeah,
Steve?
whatever. So probably the closest to it. There's a couple of really interesting acids. So things like hydrofluoric acid.
Oh, I remember that. We had a controversy in our lab
Oh, really?
because a
What's
guy in our lab just left a beaker of it lying on the side. It was just lying on the edge of the
Yeah,
bench.
you shouldn't do that. They have to have like special lids and things.
Well, it
hydrofluoric
was
acid.
just in a glass.
Yeah, in a glass. It eats glass. It dissolves
What?
glass. Hydrofluoric acid.
Maybe it was
Yeah.
special glass.
It's normally in plastic. Actually, the chemistry of fluorine is quite interesting because it actually wasn't really developed up until after the Manhattan Project. Because in the Manhattan Project they had to develop Teflon because they were looking at fluorinating uranium.
I thought Teflon was to do with space shuttles.
No. It was in the
I
Manhattan
thought
Project.
Teflon was like on the front of space shuttles, and then they thought we can put that on a frying pan.
No, that's true. But the point is that in order to be able to work with fluorinated compounds like hydrofluoric acid, you have to have something that you can put it in.
Right.
You can't put it in a cup, like a glass jar, because it dissolves glass.
Okay, Steve. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to prove I'm good at chemistry.
Right, go on then.
Teflon, tetrafluoral
Close. Yeah.
ethane.
Yeah, they call it ethylene because they're polymer chemists.
It's polyethylene. So it's
Yeah.
tetrafluoropolyethylene.
Yeah, tetrafluoropolyethylene.
Sweet.
Yeah, so
I knew I was good at chemistry.
yeah,
In
so
your
in fact-
face, Steve.
So if you go into like a fluorine lab, they quite often the labs are the windows are frosted, and they're not frosted because
That's because you guys like to get sexy. You don't want to.
well, that's true too, but that's the different room.
Ooh, it can get pretty, pretty warm. You don't want to be
Just
seeing
had to
what
be-
goes on in a chemistry lab.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah, dark. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What was I talking about?
Yeah,
Acids.
you do acid. Steve, what's your
Hydrofluoric acid.
What's your favourite acid?
Do you know what? I've got a couple.
You
one
can't
of
have 2. You got to have 1.
Well, one's not really an acid, but it's very good. So do you
Well, it's not an acid. That doesn't count.
Well, it's got acid in it. Does that count?
Okay.
All right. So one of my favorite things is called piranha solution, which is a mixture of
Piranha solution.
yeah, which is a mixture of sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide.
Why is it called piranha
That's
solution?
what it's called. I don't know.
It's not called piranha.
It is called
solution.
piranha
Well,
solution.
who called it
I
piranha
don't know,
solution?
some scientists, some
Moron.
chemists. Why
Why do you call it piranha?
I don't know why they
Why
call
don't you just call it a
Why is
mixture
anything
of-
called anything? I don't know.
Well, I mean, you have sensible names for things. You don't call it piranha
No, you have
solutions
trivial
'cause
names of
it's got-
things. You don't call benzene 135 cyclohexatriene, do you? You call it cyclohexatriene. You call it benzene. It's got a trivial
thanks.
name.
Yeah, thanks for that insight.
Yeah, all right. We'll move on. But what I wanted to really talk about, my favourite acid is probably aqua regia.
Wow.
So aqua regia is a mixture of two acids.
Aqua regia, that means like king water.
King water, exactly.
Right.
Which is a
See,
mix.
I also good at Latin.
It goes back to the first podcast. Remember we started talking about Latin in the first podcast.
We were going to do it in Latin.
No,
and then we
because
thought
we
that wouldn't appeal to a mass
joked
audience.
a Latin podcast. No. Well, I don't think that. Anyway. So aqua regia is this beautiful kind of bright orange kind of golden acid. It's a mixture of nitric and hydrochloric acid. And what's really cool about it, among other things, is that it dissolves gold. So there's not many acids that you can actually dissolve gold in a way
It's
that
mental. Because
Yeah.
gold's like kind of the reason people have gold and because it stays shiny is because it's unreactive, right?
very much so. It's really unusual. Most metals in everyday life, you don't see much elemental metal in everyday life. It's normally in the ore, right? So you have to refine bauxite to make aluminium or
Yeah.
iron ore to make ore. And gold is quite happy on its own.
All right, and so you like it because it dissolves gold.
Yeah, well, there's a really cool story with it. So there was a chemist called George de Hevesy who was working. He was a Hungarian radiochemist. He won a Nobel Prize actually for looking at radioactive traces for like medical.
Did he? I've got another good story about him. I'll save it for
Okay.
another time then.
And so de Hevesy was working during the war when the Nazis were occupying Denmark.
So he was in Denmark, was he?
He was working at the Niels Bohr Institute.
Oh, in Copenhagen.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah. And he was there, and at the time Nazi occupied Denmark, they were obviously the Nazis were confiscating gold because of for the war effort, right? And it was actually illegal to move gold from place to place.
Yeah, you don't want to be
Control.
taking wealth out of the Reich.
Yeah, so de Hevesy actually he's an organic chemist on some level, so he kind of knew how to play around with things like aqua regia. We'll post a picture of aqua regia just to show you the color of it. It's really pretty. And he had two colleagues that were working in the same place, Max von Laue and James Franck, who are both Nobel Prize winning chemists in their own right, but the Nazis were coming to take their gold, right?
No, what are they going to do with gold?
Oh, exactly. Well,
Why don't they just dig a hole, put it in a hole?
You could have hidden it, right? But this is a beautiful story. So what de Hevesy did was take the Nobel Prize, the actual prize medal you get when you get a Nobel Prize. There's a big chunk of gold
I
with
see
a
where
picture
this is
of
going.
Alfred. Yeah, exactly. With Alfred Nobel's face on it.
Yeah.
And he dissolved it in aqua regia, and he just pops it on the shelf, Nick. Pops it on the shelf.
What, in a jar?
In a jar.
Saying
Not saying
de
anything.
Hevesy's special potion.
sauce, maybe, or whatever. and the Nazis come in and they look and they can't find it because they can't confiscate the
Oh
gold.
my God, how long does it take to dissolve then?
Not very long. Yeah, overnight.
So you put
depends.
a medallion, it'll just dissolve overnight.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
incredible.
So, but what the beautiful part of the story?
Quite
which is-
risky though, because they might sort of pour it down the drain.
Someone could, yeah, but it was his lab, I
But
suppose.
it's a fun
so-
story, isn't it?
But after the war, they actually precipitated the gold from aqua regia, and then they took that back to the Nobel Committee, and they recast the Nobel prizes.
Oh, that is awesome.
Of Max van Laue and James
That is
Franck.
brilliant. You know, that reminds me of another story that I heard.
Yeah.
About another guy, and this is let's try and what's he? Herman Mark, right? He was like I think he did a lot of work on kind of structures of polymers or something.
Right.
Yeah, he was a very well known physicist, and he was also, I think he was in Austria or Germany during the war, and he had a similar problem. He had a load of money, and he wanted to get away from the Nazis. But at that time, you couldn't take money out of the
It's
country.
good, isn't it, how much Nazis encourage scientific innovation? Maybe we should have that. Maybe we should just drop a couple of Nazis into the grant committees, and then you would just innovate your way out of your problem.
So you just pick a country every
Just drop
year
some Nazis
and you
in.
invade it, and then you wait for the scientists to do amazing stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway, this dude, Herman Mark,
Sorry,
he
tell
had
me
a load.
about
He
Herman
wanted
Mark.
to get out of the country, had a load of money. Can't take it out of the country. So do you know what he did?
What do you do?
He bought a load of platinum wire, which
Right.
platinum is extremely
Very
expensive.
expensive, yeah.
Do you know what he did with it?
What would he do with what? I don't know. What did he do?
He got his wife. Well, he made coat hangers out of the platinum wire.
Oh, cool.
He changed it in shape of a coat. He got his wife to cover it with like, I don't know, some fabric or something.
Yeah.
And then he popped all of his clothes on it. And
So-
he went, I think he went out of the country, and they didn't suspect. They thought it was just normal coat hangers. So when he got
He must have been so smug.
when he got to
Walking-
England, or wherever he
walking
went, or
through
America,
the-
I think he went to America. When he got to America, he just cashed in his coat
just
hangers.
throw the clothes away.
It's
and
wicked, isn't it?
I just imagine how smug you'd be walking through like a train station with
myself.
exactly going.
£1
I am
million
so
worth of
smart.
platinum coat hangers.
Wow, that's amazing.
So if you're a scientist, yeah.
I know during the Manhattan Project, when they were trying to separate out uranium-238, they needed to build they were trying to do it with a big electromagnet. They were trying to separate them out by mass, and to do that they needed a really big load of copper. So they went to the Federal Reserve in the US and asked for. This was all done in Berkeley, and they asked for. They wanted basically a shit ton of copper. And they said no because they were using them to build airplanes and tanks and stuff. But they gave them silver. So they took the US's entire Federal Reserve of silver to make a big wire magnet.
All the silver?
All the silver that the US had.
That must have been a lot of silver.
Yeah.
Because silver's like
these Calutrons are
quite
huge.
common.
They're like, about the size of, like a transit van.
Jeez,
So,
that's pretty good, man.
and yeah, they spun it and they made these big magnets, and it didn't work.
But then I suppose that they still got the silver.
They got the silver. They're supposed to give it back, but I think there's still some of it still left at Berkeley. You can go and see it.
Oh,
I
let's
think.
go and look at that.
Should we go to
sometime,
Berkeley?
Steve. Yeah, let's go now.
All right, see you later. So, Nick, I came across this paper.
What?
Yeah, I did.
What paper did you see?
So I've got a new paper here. So this is from 2011, December the 9th, 2011, in the Journal of the Journal of Physics Special Topics.
Special topics?
Yeah, special topics.
Well, why are they special?
Well, I'll tell you in a second.
I thought all physics was special.
Well, I don't know.
They think they're so good at the Journal of Physics Special Topics,
so
don't they?
I thought of this and I started looking for it. And actually, the Journal of Physics Special Topics is basically a kind of public journal, which I don't think is peer reviewed, but it's for undergraduate physicists at the University of Leicester. And what they do as part of their module course as an undergrad is they get them to write something silly, but they do it in a kind of scientific kind of way. Which
My God, I wish I'd had that idea.
Yeah,
That's
isn't
such
it
a
good?
good idea.
So this is cool.
I'm going to have to rip that off in some way.
Yeah, well, I'm
for
sure.
my teaching.
So this is it's called. So this is by someone called D.A. Marshall, T.A. Hands, I. Griffith, and G. Douglas.
Oh,
And the
hi
top-
guys, if you're out there.
Yeah. So this is called The Trajectory of a Falling Batman. Right? I'll read you the abstract. So the abstract says, the film Batman Begins shows the character of Batman gliding using a rigid form of his cape.
Okay.
This paper assesses the feasibility of such a glide and finds that while a reasonable distance could be travelled if glided from a tall building, the speed at which Batman will be travelling would be too dangerous to stop without some method of slowing down.
And what do they work it out?
So basically, I'm going to show Nick a picture of the figure now. We'll put it up on the Twitter feed. If you look at figure 2 here, you can see Batman.
Let me just have a look at that.
Just like falling off a building.
So that's kind of like the Batman that's been drawn. I would say is a basic kind of retro Batman.
A kind of a representation of Batman, really.
Oh,
It doesn't look like what's the Batman's name? What's the character? Christian Bale. It doesn't look like Christian Bale, does it?
No, it looks more like the one from the camp 60s.
But essentially,
TV show.
They it's a proper physics paper. Right?
Well, there's loads of equations.
So they go through and they write down a bunch of equations to describe the flight. And so the idea is that when you fall off a building, you speed up, but the faster you go, the more uplift you can generate. Right. So
that's like when you reach something called terminal velocity, which is when the forces cancel out.
Yeah, and at some point you generate some uplift, right? So much like people in these kind of wingsuits and things like that. So they work it out, and they actually on the back here they've got a little diagram taken from the movie, a little screen grab. And they work out the area of the Batwing, and then from that they can work out this is the velocity profile of Batman's glide. So you can see that he speeds up to begin with, and then he slows down a bit, and then unfortunately
he reaches a constant velocity.
Yeah, until he hits the ground, and here's the distance
poor
he was
Batman.
flying. So it's quite fun.
How far can he fly?
Well, so he can actually fly. So he says, I'll read you from the discussion section of this paper. It says, Batman's descent is rapid, comma. Even for this high estimate for the lift coefficient, looking at the case for gliding from a fairly tall building of a height of about 150 meters, Batman can glide to a distance of about 350 meters. Which is reasonable. The problem that the glide lies in the velocity that as he reaches ground level. The velocity rises rapidly to a maximum of over a little 110 kilometers an hour before steadying to a constant speed of around 80 kilometers an hour. At these speeds, any impact would likely be fatal, if not severely damaging.
Oh no! But does it take into account his special body armor?
It doesn't. But at the end, it says this, which is my favourite section of the whole paper.
Right.
It says, clearly gliding using a bat cape is not a safe way to travel. Comma, unless a method to rapidly slow down is used, such as a parachute.
So the take-home message is: if you're Batman, you need to take some form of parachute with you when you're out and about.
You can't just use
jumping off buildings,
or you've got to have some kind of airbag built in your bat suit,
just like an inflatable chest.
Yeah, exactly.
To bounce off.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a total immersion inflated bodysuit.
Yeah, so actually they've done this every year. So I only saw this on the train on the way down here.
How many papers are in each issue?
I don't know really, but there's loads, right?
Oh,
so,
I'm gonna have to
go. So maybe we can like this might be a whole gold mine of research articles.
You know, there's a good each Christmas in the British Medical Journal they have kind of festive joke. Well, they're not festive, but they're kind of jokey articles.
Yeah.
And there was one year about a randomised double-blinded clinical trial on the efficacy of parachutes to prevent vertical falling cause deaths.
Right.
And it was quite a funny paper. So they'd done this kind of, general study looking at people who died in parachute accidents.
Yeah.
But they were kind of just having a go at the necessity in the medical literature to have a double-blinded controlled clinical trial for everything.
So it's a parody.
It was a total parody. So they were saying, look, we know this works.
We don't need it.
It's blindingly obvious.
The parachutes
think
work.
about it.
Yeah.
But it was quite a funny article.
So yeah, maybe we'll come back to that in the future.
Yeah, we should do, Steve. I like that.
All right, I'm glad you do. So I want to talk about danger.
Danger.
High
Danger
voltage.
mouse.
No, just danger.
Danger.
So
what?
Yeah, I want to talk about danger.
Okay.
So and kind of specifically scientific danger and danger in the laboratory. So
this is like leaving a huge bucket of cancer-causing chemicals.
No, it's not that. It's actually in a positive way. So I was thinking about this the other day, and you know how like when we were at school. So I'm a chemist, right? For anyone that doesn't know, and I think a lot of the people that become chemists do so because it's the naughtiest of all of the sciences. I think, right? You get to legitimize explosions, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. Actually,
and the best bit about that, right, is that when you see your teacher put in a little bit too much sodium in water or whatever, and the bang's a little bit bigger.
Did your teacher ever do that?
Oh yeah,
my teacher never did that.
I'm about to. But it goes, and there's the explosion, and then you can see in their eyes that they're a little bit scared. Yeah. So you legitimize this naughtiness, and then even then it gets a bit scared. And do you know what? I worry a little bit, right? Because now in this kind of as we progress in the kind of health and safety mad.
Oh, you're going into it's health and safety gone mad.
No. So it's an interesting thing. I wonder. So much of science is kind of peppered with this, people experimenting on themselves or doing things they shouldn't have done, or just getting on with it in a kind of acceptable naughtiness, right?
Do you continue that in your modern career, Steve?
I have done in times.
What have you done?
I don't want to talk about that.
Drank some ethidium bromide.
So
ethidium bromide is nasty, by the way.
But it's don't drink ethidium bromide.
Don't do that at home. Don't even
That's
think
a way
about
to
it.
Get sued. It's interesting. I wonder what you think about it. So basically, I'm thinking if you don't have that, there's clearly a difference between being in a lab or being in a school classroom and seeing your teacher blow up some sodium or whatever, or set something on fire or whatever the experiment is, or flame test or something, than it is to watch that on YouTube, right? So you can watch people put cesium in a bathtub and it explode, but that's different to actually going out and smelling what happens after you put lithium, seeing the scare in your teacher, and I think
live shows are always better than on a video.
But I worry that if we get away from doing that, right? If we get away from that kind of naughtiness and kind of self-experimentation and play, I mean,
are you suggesting that we are?
I think we are.
I think people still do that stuff today, Steve.
But you can't. But it's not in the classroom. They're not.
I reckon they do.
No. You're not? So
You can't blow up some sodium in the classroom anymore.
You have to fill in a lot. There's a lot of risk assessments.
See,
that
I
have to be
wouldn't. I'd
done.
just get it in. And
Yeah,
do
that's
it
why
anyway.
you're not a science teacher.
I remember my science teacher. We never did any sodium blowing up. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that had already been stopped. Although I am a bit older than you. But I remember my science teacher burning magnesium pencil sharpeners.
Yeah.
That was his party trick.
Yeah.
You get one of those, those old school shiny
just set 'em on
pencil
fire.
sharpeners. Just hold it over the Bunsen burner. Take a while to get going, and then it would burn like man. It would really
Yeah.
burn, and it would burn through the asbestos mat.
Yeah, that's good.
that we had. There's another health and safety problem there. Asbestos mat.
Well, that's kind of legitimate, I think. But, when I was doing my PhD, we made some thermite, right? No, we just like
Thermite.
yeah, so because we just wanted to see an explosion, so we just set something on fire, right?
What's thermite?
Thermite's what you use to weld railway girders together. It's a combination of aluminium powder and rust, basically.
Oh right.
And when the oxygen is transferred from the iron to the aluminium, it gives out a
blows
lot.
up.
It gives out a lot of heat, so you can use it to melt metal, basically. But yeah, I just wondered, what do you think? Do you think we're getting less dangerous? Is it becoming a little bit sanitized in the lab, or do you think that's irrelevant? It doesn't matter.
I don't know. I mean, in scientific labs, obviously, there's people who work. I think there's statistics saying that people who work as bench scientists statistically live shorter lives than other
More
people.
exciting lives, though.
Well, possibly.
Well, I don't know. Like, so, for instance, in your lab, right, we have the same. So I'm sure it's the same as my lab. So when we want to do something new in science, we have to do a risk assessment. So we have to kind of look at what we're doing, and then we have to say,
Yeah,
okay,
but do you actually do that?
No,
or do you
we
just
don't.
Do it? You do it when
We
the guy
don't.
comes round.
we do it when the guy comes around. Well, because if you did.
we shouldn't be saying
No,
this
we shouldn't.
stuff.
But the thing
let's
is,
say anyway.
if you did it for every experiment, you'd never get anything done because you spend all of your time doing the risk assessments and not bothering to actually test.
It'd be a right pain up the bum.
I just think it's completely non-productive to scientific advancement, and I think I think it would be. I basically want to see more explosions, and I think if you spoke to the average school kid and the 7-year-old that lives deep in my subconscious wants to see more explosions. So I think maybe we should try and explode stuff in schools. That's what we should do.
Yeah.
TheScienceShed, we're in the TheScienceShed. TheScienceShed, we're in the TheScienceShed. Come on, Steve.
Bunsen.
Burner.
Dolly.
Machine.
Internal.
Combustion.
Why do we need
Steam.
Petri?
Dishes.
Oscar.
Brain.
Isaac.
Newton.
Transplanting.
Science.
Nick, I'm sad we've come to the end of another podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's all done.
Why?
Well, we've just run out of things to talk about.
Oh, we never do that.
No, we'll think up some new things. We'll be
Yeah.
recharged for next time.
We will be. I'm looking forward to it. And
know
who
what-
knows where we'll be next time?
Who knows? Should we get some guest speakers? Do you reckon
We should definitely
should we
do that.
spice it up a bit?
Yeah.
We get who should we get?
Johnny Ball. What?
Johnny Ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get Johnny Ball
Oh, great. Well, you can all look forward to that one next time.
next time in the Science Shed.
Yay!
With me, Steve, Lee,
And me, Nick Evans.
and with Johnny Ball. Hopefully.
Maybe not.
See you later. Bye.